me, it's going to be providing sort of that Australian sort of lens on what I see is happening in the US. So the last ASCI report, I think, had the infrastructure deficit at around 2.9 trillion, which had gone up $500 billion since the last ASCI report. So that's the greatest challenge facing everyone, is that infrastructure deficit. I think the average infrastructure in that report was about a C minus. So what that provides is a huge opportunity to bring this infrastructure up to, say, a B minus, or at least a better quality than what it is now. And how can we do that without raising taxes or printing more money? So we do that by understanding the state of our assets and spending money like we do in Australia using optimization science. And that's been done around Australia for years now. That's that strategic asset management approach. So using data and science and the optimization logic to spend the money so that in 5, 10, 20 years time, there's actually less assets in red, so in poor condition. So you've got better bridges, better roads, and ultimately the infrastructure deficit actually scales down rather than continues to creep up. And that's done by where we're spending money in the right place at the right time rather than just building new. So from an Australian perspective, I'd love to see the $1.9 trillion funding be directed to smarter asset management, not just building shiny new things. So through that, though, you need, as we mentioned previously, there needs to be education of staff so they understand what asset management is, how to do it properly, and really shifting that lens from a really short term, what's happening in the next couple of years or immediately, to what's our infrastructure going to look at over 20 years. So Australia, we've got legislation that requires us to have a minimum 10-year asset management plan. And we've recently been provided through COVID stimulus funding similar to what's happening, just at a smaller scale. But a lot of that was focused, and requirements said that we had to spend it on assets that are identified in our asset management plans. So it limited the scope of spending to try and ensure that we weren't going to have a huge stimulus funding pool come through, and then in 20 years, the next generation is trying to pay for what was spent now by building all these brand new things. It was actually spent to lower the burden on those future generations, which means that we've got more time to plan and do the right things. I will just touch on the shovel ready comment that I saw earlier. So in Australia, some of our grant funding is required to be what they call shovel ready. And so we're able to do that because our asset management plans have set our next 10 to 20 years worth of renewal and replacements. And so we can start to design those in advance, ready for construction the following year or the following 2 or 3 years. So when this funding comes through, we've actually already got our designs, our plans in place. So as our, true shovel ready, all we do, we take that funding, go to tender, and then we can build them. So as mentioned, I really hope that some of that funding can be spent, that you guys are going to receive, to be spent on training staff and providing that great education so the money and communities can be benefited from it down the line.